America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
And if he does not disarm, the United States of America will lead a coalition and disarm him in the name of peace. Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
On the 9/11 event, you have to make a distinction, crucial distinction between two things. The earlier question, at least as I understood it, was whether the Bush administration was involved in planning it. For that, I think it's outlandish.
That the Bush administration gained from it, although true, it doesn't seem to me to tell you anything. It just says they're just one of the power systems in the world, so they gained from it. Did they plan it in any way or know anything about it? This seems to me extremely unlikely. I mean, for one thing, they would have had to been insane to try anything like that.
Yes, appreciation is the right word, no question. I can't remember when I first encountered Chomsky. It was in the 70s at some point. And as I say in my book, I have 16 Chomsky books. I just counted them. And so as soon as I heard about, got the drift, got the DNA about Chomsky, I thought, oh boy, this guy is saying very important things that, that no one else is saying as well. And he's a full-fledged academic and so forth. And I became an admirer and in fact a protege even of Chomsky. And I can't tell you how much I praised him and how many places I praised him on air in my television programs.
This relates to the war on terror. I remember the people who are now in Washington, most of them, also were in leadership positions in the Reagan administration, which came into office in 1981, declaring that a war on terror would be the centerpiece of U.S. foreign policy.
I praised him when I taught university for 7 years. I praised him in the classroom. I encouraged people to buy his books. I helped out making manufacturing consent. I'm on the credits there. I didn't help much, but enough to get on the credits. I saw early rushes of manufacturing consent that Mark Akbar sent me, and I made comments and sent them in and so forth. I think it's a brilliant movie. I learned so much from Chomsky, of course, about the depredations of U.S. foreign policy. So up until very recently, I was a fan, a protege, a booster of Chomsky. I admired Chomsky and benefited from the body of his work. None of that is in the least bit changed by the fact that I began to wonder, as so many people have, why in the world would he accept that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman who killed JFK? Now, this was a very, very, very important event in American and world history.
I mean, it just doesn't make it. I mean, even if we're true, which is extremely unlikely, who cares? I mean, even if we're true, which is extremely unlikely, who cares? You know? I mean, it doesn't have any significance. You know? I mean, it doesn't have any significance. But it's a little bit like the huge energy that's put out on trying to figure out who killed John F. Kennedy. I mean, yeah, who knows? And who cares? I mean, yeah, who knows? And who cares? I mean, plenty of people get killed all the time. Why does it matter that one of them happened to be John F. Kennedy?
And I was puzzled and puzzled and puzzled by this. And I was bewildered like others, and I talked with others who loved Chomsky, and they too, they said they just couldn't understand it. Our brains were stalled out on that. And even after I read Rethinking Camelot, for the first time, this goes back maybe 3 or so years, for the first time I realized that Chomsky was not intellectually sound. I would even say that it was intellectually dishonest in that book. You could say that. And I was writing in the margins of that book that this doesn't stand up. He's making a bald assertion here. He doesn't have his evidence there. He's contradicting himself there. And then I put down that book and I sort of reverted, like we do when we're in denial. I reverted to adulating him again until we come up to the fall of 2002, and he's coming into Toronto, and I'm arranging for the second time to interview him on TV. I interviewed him earlier in the mid-90s.
360 Vision's Barry Zwicker sat down with the controversial political thinker to discuss faith, politics, and the relationship between the two.
Welcome, Mr. Chomsky. Thank you for joining us. Would you, or do you consider yourself... I did one interview with Chomsky, which came out as 3 on-air interviews. And then I interviewed him in Hamilton. And by this time, 9/11 had happened, of course, and so I asked him about 9/11. And that was when I was shocked and disappointed, and that he just immediately said, this is conspiracy theory. And I was already well aware of the intellectual bankruptcy of this put-down phrase, conspiracy theorist. And I could hardly believe that he was using it. Chomsky said to me, look, this is just conspiracy theory, what you're saying. I gave him the question about 9/11, very logical and brief on a piece of paper so he could read it. And he just looked at it and threw away the paper. And he said, this is just conspiracy theory. And he said, look, you can make a case that there's a conspiracy about anything, even just a traffic accident. That's what he said. So I got to thinking about that later. So you can make a conspiracy out of a traffic accident. This is supposed to be, and is in fact, one of the world's greatest brains and minds, no question about it. So if you can make a case that there was a conspiracy behind a fender bender, does this mean, therefore, that any other case where it's being claimed there is a conspiracy is an invalid claim? No, doesn't logically follow, does it? Doesn't logically follow. So, but even take the fender bender thing. First of all, it's extremely unlikely that there would be conspiracy involved in any fender bender. But supposing you took an actual fender bender, you looked into it, you found out that one of the drivers caused the accident in an insurance fraud thing. Okay, now you found one. You found a conspiracy behind this accident. Does that mean that all other accidents are conspiracies also? No, that doesn't follow either. If you chase this down logically, it was a bizarre non sequitur.
September 11th had complicated effects in the country. What you read in the newspapers and the journals is the effect as filtered through a particular perspective, those of intellectual opinion. But among the general public, I don't think that was true. In fact, there was a substantial upsurge in concern and interest and engagement, huge mobs all over the place. I mean, you couldn't talk about topics like this to big audiences before.
He engages in bizarre non sequiturs all the time. This is a technique, he uses it. In another case, he said, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. If you follow that through, you could say that everybody in the White House is insane.
Did they plan it in any way or know anything about it? This seems to me extremely unlikely. I mean, for one thing, they would have had been insane to try anything like that.
This is a technique he has.
I'll take for granted here that the perpetrators were the al-Qaeda network and Osama bin Laden. There was a prima facie case supporting that at the outset, and it remains about as it was. No further evidence has come along, which is kind of remarkable, since this has surely been the most intense investigation on the part of the world's intelligence agencies in history. But these are hard things to figure out. And in fact, there aren't much or any evidence is perhaps not too surprising. No further evidence has come along, which is kind of remarkable, since this has surely been the most intense investigation on the part of the world's intelligence agencies in history. But these are hard things to figure out.
This is a technique he has. It's actually one of his techniques, which is intellectually irresponsible, to say the least.